Mayor, if you would indulge us a few more minutes, we're having a couple of technical difficulties, but we should be up and running soon.
Okay. You're muted, Tina.
Sorry, there were technical difficulties on my end.
No worries. Are we good to go, or
Let me do one more text and
let me know when we're live?
You are the host, Tina.
okay, thank you. Okay.
All right, good evening, everyone. The time is now 6:08 p.m. I'd like to welcome everybody to the regular meeting of the Galt City Council for Tuesday, February the 1st, 2022. Due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic emergency, we have to continue to handle our city council meeting much differently than we usually do for the protection of the public and our city staff. I'm now going to ask our city manager, Mr. Hines, to give a brief explanation to the public. Sir?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, sir.
Great. This meeting of the Galt City Council is being conducted by teleconference/video conference only pursuant to the County of Sacramento's January 6, 2022 health order prohibiting in-person city council meetings. Members of the public will see the council members and city staff who are appearing via remote video/telephone connections. City council meetings will be held virtually by teleconference or video conference only until further notice by the county. Today's agenda states that we are also using the Zoom webinar format, which allows the public to provide live public comment. Members of the public may use the link to enter the webinar as attendees. They should also be able to use the raise their hand feature option in the Zoom webinar to let us know if they would like to speak, and should do so when the mayor announces the time for general public comment, or when a specific agenda item is called if your comment concerns an item on the agenda. Attendees should also see a lower hand feature if they change their mind and do not want to speak. In addition, members of the public may use the call-in feature also described in the agenda. You may just listen if you prefer, but if you would like to speak when the mayor announces the time for public comment, you may do so by pressing *9 at that time. We request, as we do at typical in-person council meetings, that speakers provide their name and address when they are called on to speak, but doing so is not required. Today's agenda states that residents may submit written public comments via email to pubcom@cityofgalt.org prior to the council meeting. In view of the direct video conference and call-in direct opportunities for public comment just described, email comments will not be read out loud during the meeting, but will be distributed to City Council and made part of the official minutes and posted to the city's website prior to the meeting. Mr. Mayor, that concludes my comments.
All right, thank you, sir. I will now call the meeting to order. Tina, can you give us a roll call, please?
Sorry, can I ask, since I was having technical difficulties, did we have a report out from closed session?
Frank, do you want to repeat that for Tina? You're muted, sir.
Sorry about that. We did have a report out at about 5:55 p.m., Tina, and there was no reportable action.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Vice Mayor Sandu,
Here.
Councilmember Papineau,
Here.
Councilmember Vandenberg,
Here.
Councilmember Lozano,
Here.
Mayor Farmer.
Here. I would ask everyone to join me in a silent prayer followed by a flag salute. I wanted to mention today that Elk Grove PD laid to rest Officer Lenahan, so I wanted to ask everyone if they could keep his family in your prayers this evening. Thank you. If everyone would please join me in a pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Tina, if you would like to read our replay statement, please.
This meeting of the Galt City Council will be cablecast on Metro Cable 14, the local government affairs channel on the Comcast Consolidated Communications and AT&T Uverse cable systems. This meeting is closed caption and webcast at metro14live.saccounty.gov. Today's meeting will air Friday, February 4th at 9 a.m. and Saturday, February 5th at 9 a.m. This meeting can also be viewed at youtube.com/MetroCable14.
All right, thank you. We'll now move on to item F, agenda approval, additions and or deletions. Do I have any additions or deletions from council this evening? Okay. Move on to item G, public comment. Tina?
Under Government Code Section 54954.3, members of the public may address the City Council on non-agenda items. The public comment section is for the City Council to receive comments, except for brief responses to questions. No discussion or action may be taken on any item that is not listed on the agenda. Please limit comments to a maximum of 5 minutes. Due to the statewide emergency, public comments may also be submitted as noted above via the options listed on the first page of the agenda for providing live public comment or prior to the meeting via email to pubcom@cityofgalt.org by 4 p.m. on the day of the meeting, which will be distributed to City Council, made part of the official minutes, and posted on the city's website prior to the meeting, but will not be read out loud.
Okay, do we have any public comment at this moment?
There was no written comment and no hands raised at this time.
Okay, for those of you that are watching, if you would like to make a public comment, the public comment period is open, and you can raise your hand online if you are watching via Zoom, or you may call in using the phone number that's on the agenda link and press *9 to use the raise your hand feature that way. I'll allow a little bit more time here if someone wishes to make a public comment. Also, if you're reviewing and you would like to make a public comment on a specific item throughout the meeting, you can wait until that item is being discussed and you can speak specifically on that item at that given time in the same manner.
We do now have a hand raised.
Okay, go ahead.
Harry Wenzel, Galt. I just think we should have an ETA for the financial statement, for last year's financial statement. And I'd like to see more utilization of the website for the GMPCP project. You know, like put the schedule of when the meetings are, maybe notes to those meetings, and just go ahead and post up the latest versions or the versions of the proposal. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wenzel. Mr. Hines, would you like to maybe answer that or no?
Would you just, I would ask Mr. Wenzel to listen out or to look out for future agendas, because his questions will be answered soon.
Okay, thank you, sir. All right, do we have any other public comment at this moment?
Mr. Wenzel, is your hand still raised, or did you have another comment? Okay, not at this time. Thank you.
Okay, I'll now be closing the public comment period for general public comment. And we're moving on to item H, presentations. Do we have any presentations this evening?
Not this evening.
All right, thank you. Next item is item I, reports by city council members on regional boards, commissions, and/or committees. I will go around to the council members, and then we will move on to item 1, report from Vice Mayor and myself. So starting with Councilman Papineau, do you have anything to report this evening?
We had our first meeting of the Metro Air Quality Board Thursday, and surprise, the State Air Resources Board has now upped the percentage from 40% of businesses that were required special inspections to 100% of businesses that qualify as potential polluters. So there's a lot of discussion of how much cost that's going to inflict on the businesses and how to deal with it. Other than that, we didn't really have anything of substance.
Okay, sir. Councilman Vandenberg.
Thank you, Mayor. We did have a meeting on the groundwater basin. We're still hammering out some basic financial matters, but there is good public interest and a lively conversation, so it's a good start.
All right, thank you, sir. Councilman Lozano.
Yeah, we had a SACOG board meeting on the 20th, and didn't have a lot on the agenda. We did hear a presentation on land use and environment and those kinds of things. Also a Delta Protection Commission briefing. which was somewhat interesting. But it's a this commission actually looks at the Delta and protecting the Delta, and Don Natoli is part of it, and and they're doing what they can at the legislature to make sure that the farmland and Delta is protected. So it's kind of interesting. We did install our new board chair, Rick Jennings, who is a city council member in Sacramento. And the vice chair this year is Patrick Kennedy, who is a county board of supervisor here in Sacramento. So that's pretty much all we have.
All right, thank you, sir. We're going to move on to reports from Vice Mayor Sandu, who attended the League of Cities online academy with myself. So I'm going to let the Vice Mayor tell us about his attendance there.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last week, I joined the League of California City Virtual New Mayors and City Council Academy. The Academy expands an individual knowledge on a wide range of topics relevant to the City Council member, role with a range of topics relevant to the City Council member, their cities, and foster relationship and communication with the peers. There is a few topics. I just going very brief. We learn on that academy. I also joined a couple of years ago as a person-to-person, but this was on a virtual. It helped, but it's not the same thing when we were doing person-to-person. One thing like in Brown Act, they go detail a lot of things. I learned about the Brown Act. Mayor and council members' responsibility and city manager commitments. Efficient communication, I can trust, is the most important thing for the communication. Effective advocacy on the city issues. Then lastly is social media and digital communication, and a lot of learn about that. This was a good class, a lot to learn. And that's all on this virtual academy. And I also attend yesterday on South Sacramento Conservation Agency meeting. And we did a review and approved the first report for the South Sacramento habitat conservation. There was 6 projects was involved. 2 projects was the public and 4 was the private. And 2 out of 4 they are from here from Galt, Veranda and Cedar Flats. And that's all. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you, sir. I too attended the League of California Cities. As the Vice Mayor mentioned, was not as interesting. I mean, it was interesting, but I had much more good time attending in person my first year. This will be the 3rd year. So 2 online academies they attended and 1 in person. And great thing about in person is, you actually are able to socialize with other council members outside the sessions, and you learn a lot from talking to people about their cities and getting ideas about how they're handling certain things. And it's really helpful. So I really missed that part of it. And but in light of COVID and everything, they do the online academy. So I was able to attend 4 sessions. One was the planning and land use policies, which was very interesting. Just a brief kind of coverage of what that was about. We kind of went over some of the Assembly and Senate bills regarding housing in California, and what these policies are meant to do and the impacts they're having on housing and cities like Galt with mandates and so on. It was very, very interesting. Not to get into the weeds and all that, but I had a discussion with Community Development Director Craig Hoffman afterwards, and he's sharp as a tack on this stuff. And so it was just, and it's an ever fluid thing with housing in the state of California. I attended another session with open government and conflicts of interest. Talked a lot about the Brown Act, conflicts of interest, and roles of city council, roles of city manager, and our duties to our voting base, so on and so forth. Very interesting. And then I'll skip forward to the last one, was the social media, which was very interesting. I love making sure I always see that one every year, because it's such an interesting session. They talk about the ever-changing world of social media and how it applies to cities and council and elected officials in general. And I just want to touch on a few facts. We were given some stats that were very interesting. It appears that society in general has now has less an attention span than goldfish. Apparently, human beings have an 8-second attention span, and goldfish have a 9-second attention span. So we have become so impatient with technology. Another interesting stat was that YouTube has now matched Google as a search engine. There's just as many searches for YouTube for like how-to videos and that kinds of thing as there is on Google searches. And then as it pertains to cities, we talked in great depth about, social media really has become the platform for speech and exchange of ideas, more or less the town hall of our generation. And they really talked about cities embracing that and ways that we could do that as in a city very efficiently, and there was a lot of good ideas exchanged. So it was very interesting, and I would love to do it again sometime if I had a chance. If anyone should ever be an elected official and attends, I would highly recommend that class, and just to attend the academy in general, because it's very informative. Other than that, I actually had a public safety meeting this past Monday, last week. And a couple things we discussed. We had a great presentation by one of our Galt PD officers on the use of drones and a drone program that Galt PD is interested in using, and that will be coming to the council, I think, soon. Just another piece of technology that will make our PD more effective, and look forward to seeing that formally. And we talked about some traffic areas of concern, and we talked about electing a new chair person, which we tabled because we had a couple of participants that were missing on our meeting. So other than that, that's kind of the high points, and that'll do it for me. So we will move on to, do we need to ask for public comment, Frank, on this item? You don't, right?
No.
Okay, just making sure. All right, moving on to item J, our information consent calendar. It is recommended that items 1 through 7 be acted upon simultaneously unless a separate discussion and/or action is requested by a council member. Does any of the council have any items they would like to pull from the consent calendar? Okay, I would like to pull actually item J4 for a brief discussion. And with that, I will, I'm going to open the public comment period on the consent calendar while I read the items. So if someone would like to comment on any of these items, they may raise their hand on Zoom or on the phone and do so while I read these, and then I will call on you. Our consent calendar items are J1, minutes of the regular meeting of January the 18th, 2022. Item 2, receive and file warrants for period ending January the 19th of 2022. Item 3 is the adoption of a resolution approving the submission to CalRecycle of a notice of intent to comply with SB 1383 regulations pursuant to SB 619. Item 5 is the lease agreement with Blue Dog Distributing for warehouse space at 140 Enterprise Court in the city of Galt. Item 6 is AB 361 resolution making findings necessary to continue to conduct Brown Act meetings by teleconference. And item 7, the designation of authorized official to execute land and water conservation fund grant documents related to Walker Park Phase 2A. I will entertain a motion to approve those 6 items.
We do have public comment.
Okay, sorry. Thank you. Go ahead with the public comment.
Teresa McCord.
Good evening. I'd like to comment on topic J4, tobacco grant award acceptance.
Actually, Ms. McCord, if you want to hang on, we're actually going to approve the other 6 items, and then we're going to be discussing that item next, if you'd like to wait to comment on that particular item.
Sure, not a problem.
Do we have any other public comment, Tina?
Not at this time.
Okay. All right, we'll be closing the public comment period on the 6 items on the consent calendar. Do I have a motion to approve?
Move.
Second.
Motion by Vice Mayor Sandu, seconded by Councilmember Vandenberg. Can I have a roll call, please?
Vice Mayor Sandu,
Aye.
Councilmember Papineau,
Aye.
Councilmember Vandenberg,
Aye.
Councilmember Lozano,
Aye.
Mayor Farmer.
Aye. Consent calendar approved 5-0. All right, item J4 is subject is the tobacco grant award acceptance. I just pulled this item because we talked briefly about this in our safety meeting, and I wanted Chief to just give a real quick kind of overview on what exactly we plan on doing with this money should we approve this.
Sorry about that. I was trying to get my background right. So
No worries.
thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. This item before you is a tobacco grant award, which we applied for in April of 2021 after we did some analysis related to tobacco-related incidents in the school. And we noticed that there was an uptick citywide since 2017. And so in 2016, Prop 56 awarded a funding source for these types of activities. And so we submitted the grant, and actually our SROs, Officer Castaneda and Officer Franklin, wrote this grant on our behalf. We submitted it to the Department of Justice, and we were awarded a 3-year grant to the tune of $62,756. $25,085 of that is for the installation of 18, smoke detectors, vape detectors for the schools, 8 at each of the high schools and 2 at Estrelita. And then the remaining balance is split over the 3-year period for decoy operations and community education, which will be done on an overtime reimbursement through the grant. So this item is before you for acceptance, so we can officially accept the money and participate in the program, which will go until July of 2025.
Okay, thank you, Chief.
Yes, no problem.
Do we have any, public comment period is going to be open on this item now. If you would like to comment, you can please raise your hand on Zoom or on the phone, and we will call upon you. Do we have any public comment?
Okay, Teresa, can you?
Ms.
Can you hear us?
McCord, you can go ahead now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
All right, thank you for that. Good evening, council members, city officials, and community members. My name is Teresa McCord. I work for Dignity Health Medical Foundation as the service line manager for pediatrics for the Greater Sacramento service area. I also serve as the vice chair for our city council safety committee. However, I come to you tonight as a parent who has had to face one of their worst fears this past year with my teenage daughter. Now, to give you some backstory and tell you why I'm so passionate about this topic. My daughter throughout elementary school and middle school had always been an awesome student, honor roll, great athlete, and she was always reserved by her teachers as a sweet and kind student. Late last year, her freshman year, I received a text from a family friend who told me that my daughter was vaping and that she had devices in her backpack. Finding this to be true, I knew it was not the first time that she'd been vaping. This was just the first time that she'd been caught. So how long had this been going on, and how far down the spiral had she gone? I know now that it had been months, and by the time I'd found out that she was vaping, she had also begun acting out in other ways that were in the form of self-harm. She was vaping to numb her feelings, to suppress her anxiety, in addition to peer pressure. By the time all of this unraveled, we had to get immediate intervention and treatment. Now, do I blame vaping for all of this? No, I don't. But I often wonder, what would have happened if we would have caught this sooner? What if our schools had ways to intervene sooner? Tools to help detect vaping? Could we have prevented a near suicide attempt? Could we have gotten her resources sooner than having to go through a whirlwind of crisis? Maybe. And that maybe is why I'm here tonight. Some people say that vaping is harmless or is less dangerous than cigarettes. Well, here's some facts about teen vaping. Using nicotine in adolescence can harm the parts of the brain that control attention, learning, mood, and impulse control, and the brain develops until about age 25. Each time a new memory is created or a new skill is learned, stronger connections or synapses are built between the brain cells. Young people's brains build synapses faster than adult brains. Nicotine changes the way that these synapses are formed. Using nicotine in adolescence may also increase the future addiction of other drugs. One pod is the equivalent to 20 cigarettes, and these devices are also used for marijuana products. Vaping causes severe lung illness and is responsible for 68 deaths in 29 states. The youngest death was 15 years old. Teens are able to purchase these products from their cell phones through social media, as well as make purchases online regardless of the age restrictions. They are made to look like ordinary school supplies and can be hiding in plain sight. But there are very little resources out there for parents and schools to prevent underage vaping. We need to do better than that. We need to invest in our children and their future. After all, aren't they our most important thing in the world? We need tools to help our resource officers and school administrators in preventing underage vaping. We need to make it more difficult for them to obtain and use. After my daughter and our family had gone through that difficult situation, I learned from many of my neighbors and friends that they had gone through very similar things. This is not an isolated issue. This is not a school issue. This is an epidemic sweeping our country, and we need to do everything that is within our ability to help protect our kids. When I asked Mr. Lara and Officer Castaneda what I could do to help, they said they were trying to purchase vape detectors through a grant for both high schools. This would enable them to detect vaping fumes in real time so that resource officers could be deployed in hopes of deterring and preventing underage vaping. So members of the council, I implore you tonight to do more for the kids in this community and give our schools the tools they need in fighting against teen vaping. Please adopt the tobacco grant resolution.
Thank you, Ms. McCord, for your comments. Appreciated. Do we have any other public comment?
No hands raised.
Okay. Again, public comment on this item is open. If you would like to speak, you can raise your hand now on Zoom, or you can press star 9 on the phone and we'll call on you. Do you have any hands raised, Tina?
No hands raised.
Okay, well, with that, I will go ahead and close the public comment period on this particular item. Do we have any questions from council? Okay, I will look for, someone raise their hand? No, okay. I will look for a motion to approve item J for the tobacco grant award acceptance.
So move. Second.
I'm going to give the move to Councilman Papanow, seconded by Councilmember Lozano. Can I have a roll call, please?
Vice Mayor Sandu,
Aye.
Councilmember Papineau,
Aye.
Councilmember Vandenberg,
Aye.
Councilmember Lozano,
Aye.
Mayor Farmer.
Yes. Approved 5-0. Thank you. All right, moving on to item K, scheduled matters, notice of public hearing. Do we have any this evening?
No public hearing.
All right. Moving on to item L, our regular calendar. First items from City Manager's office. Item 1 is going to be the coronavirus COVID-19 update. Mr. Hines. You're muted, sir, if you're there.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, hang on for just
Okay.
a second. I'm trying to pull up a document here. Hang on. Let's see. All right. Well, tell you what, Mr. Hoffman, do you have the document available?
Oh, sorry. Let me see. I'm gonna have to go to my Outlook.
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Hines.
I've got it at,
Oh, do you want to, Tina?
yeah, I got it. I have it.
That would be great. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Sorry.
No worries, no worries. Yeah, I had some technical issues on this end. Ms. Hubert, if you could share the presentation, I'd appreciate it.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
let me pull it up here.
Okay.
Well, I did have it. We're having difficulties here.
Can you go over to your PowerPoint icon and see if,
Yeah.
and click
there it
on
is.
that? There we go.
Did it go up?
Yes, it did.
There
There
it is.
you go. Okay, so tell you what, can you close that window? Very good, very good. All right, so the COVID-19 update for February 1st, 2022. We can move to the next slide, please. The number of cases in Sacramento County have gone up 15%. The number of deaths in Sacramento County have gone up 4%. That's 102 individuals. So this latest wave is still wreaking havoc on the population. Here in the city of Galt, the number of cases have gone up 31%, or another 1,500 cases, and the number of deaths here in the city of Galt as a result of the COVID-19 is up 8%, and that's 5 individuals. Next slide, please. So Sacramento County, the daily case rate is 115 per 100,000, and that's down from 187.6 per 100,000 on January 18th. So that's a dramatic decrease, and I'm happy, and I think we should all be happy to see that decrease. Area hospitals currently have 595 number of individuals hospitalized with COVID-19. This is up from 547 hospitalized on January 18th. Next slide, please. Thursday's COVID-19 testing site in Galt will now be performed under a California state grant and will no longer be operated by funding from Sacramento County. The Friday and Saturday testing site continues to be conducted by Curative. Residents can once again schedule appointments online or at CureTV/Galt. So our testing site numbers, the total test for, again, this shows the testing results from January 13th through January 27th. And as you can see, the total tests have gone down a little bit. Total rapid tests have gone down a little bit. Rapid positives have gone down, and that's good to see. And then total PCR and PCR positives, again, that's gone down. So far the trend is going in the right way. Next slide, please. Effective January 6th, the Sacramento County Health Officer issued an order directing public boards, councils, commissions, and similar to conduct all meetings virtually. According to the January 6th health order, the county health officer is expected to reevaluate the need for this order no later than February 1st. However, nothing has been reported as of 2 p.m. today. And next slide, please. Tina, thank you so much. And Mayor and members of the council, I'm available for questions to the extent that I can answer them.
Okay, thank you, sir. I'm going to go ahead and open the public comment period for this particular item, should we have any. If you are online, please raise your hand in Zoom or *9 on the phone. Do we have any questions for Mr. Hines from the council? If you do, please raise your hand. I can see you. Tina, your screen, your inbox is open there.
Yeah, Tina, you can stop your share right now.
There, then.
Okay.
Okay, we've had, looks like no questions from council. Do we have any public comment on this particular item?
We do have a hands raised.
Okay, go ahead and start with the first one.
Mr. Wenzel.
Mr. Wenzel, go ahead.
Okay. Okay, now can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. Well, I know that COVID is a touchy subject, and council members and managers have to walk a tightrope. I guess a couple of things as a constituent, when I hear the word prohibit and I hear the word directive, and it comes from somebody I didn't elect, I'll just register my feelings on that as a constituent. I did not elect these people. I've watched a lot of their meetings and all of that. They're nice people. I like their website for what it is. And of course it could be better, but I appreciate everything everybody's doing. I thought I'd just point out a couple of statistics. I'll start with the total deaths since the beginning of the pandemic for those under 19 years old. There is no category for under 10. but the total deaths is 5. There's no color around that as to comorbidity for those children. It's sad, of course. And another thing that I think we all need to keep in mind, particularly me, because I'm almost 70, and that is that 80% of all of the deaths in the county are people over 65. Okay, so that's just a big stark number, because the other number that most people, if you want to do this poll that I do with people when I hear them talking about COVID, I just ask them, in Sacramento County with about 1.55 million people, how many people do you think have died? Most people say, I'm not sure. And I said, well, I mean, what's your impression? You listen to all of this stuff. What do you think that number is? I get answers anywhere from 50,000 to 250,000, which if you stopped and thought about it, we'd see bodies everywhere. But the number is 2,696 by the latest that I see. It's not a pretty number, but as Mr. Hines mentioned, we don't know with COVID from COVID. So I just want to take somebody someplace, you know, I guess it's going to be me tonight. I know you guys are in a tough position, and I don't know how we're going to get out of that position, but that's where we are. So, you know, there's sort of good news, bad news out of all this. And I just, you know, I appreciate what everybody's doing, and just thought I would speak up and say we need to do something as we go along. It's not going to end until we do something, I don't think. So that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Russell, for comments. Do we have another public comment, Tina?
No more hands raised.
Okay. Again, if you would like to speak on this item, you would need to raise your hand on Zoom or press star 9 on the phone. I'll give just a few seconds more should someone want to do that. No further comment from council while we, nope, okay. And no additional comments, Tina?
No more.
Okay. All right, well, moving on to item 2, also from City Manager's office. Subject is going to be the Saturday market hours. Mr. Hines.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to turn it over to Director Solis.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Armando Solis, Parks and Rec Director. So tonight we have the Saturday market hours. So at the January 18th, 2022 meeting, City Council approved a pilot monthly Saturday market. The hours of operation and duration of market were discussed, and City Council directed staff to place a poll on Facebook to determine if citizens would prefer a Saturday morning, midday, or evening market, and if they would prefer a 4, 5, or 6 hour operation. So today I'm going to show you the outcome of that survey. So the question was asked, the City of Galt is planning a monthly Saturday market, April through October on the 4th Street Promenade. And this is what we would be providing.
Director Solis, are you sharing your screen?
I thought I was.
Okay.
It's not.
Give us a second here. Tina, is he allowed to share? I'm sorry. City Clerk Hubert, is he allowed to share?
Is there? Can you see it?
Yes.
So there was a pretty graphic up front that you guys missed. So here's the question that was posed on Facebook. And so how many hours would you like the Saturday market to be? The 6 hours was at 38% and the 4 hours was at 34%. Based on the 4 hours, the 10 to 2 was the big number at 38%. On the 5 hours, 10 to 3 at 35%. If I'm going through this too quickly, please let me know. I know it's a lot of numbers to take in at this point. And then based on the 6 hours, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m., that 136%, 10 to 4 was close behind at 33. In the staff report, we told you we would talk to some of the businesses and our partners. So here's the response from our businesses. We did not get a response from Brewster's or Velvet Grill. So you see Evening Market by Papa's and Wings, Back Alley Brew, Morning Market by Barsetti's Wine, and Little Farmhouse. So some of these things that I've had comments on is people would like alcohol, beer and wine. That's really not a morning market type of activity. And along with our bands, so if we go morning market, you have to take that into account. And then our partnership, our San Joaquin County Certified Farmers Market Organizer said that it would be less of the certified vendors, but he could still get our produce vendors. They would just not be certified. He's willing to work with us morning or night. And the school district who we plan on doing some events with are flexible with event times and excited about the partnership. So Jackie Garcia is online and she'd be happy to answer questions along with me. And I can go back to any slide if you'd like.
Thank you for the presentation, Armando's interesting statistics. Thank you for doing that, by the way. Again, effort to, kind of involve the citizens in this. What I'm seeing is it seems that, obviously there was difference of opinions, but it seemed to be that regardless of the length of hours, that most of the people in the poll kind of are kind of one, you have a 3 p.m. end, and then we had the other one was a 2 p.m. end. It seems like, to me, what I'm seeing is, that it's people are favoring more of a middle time-ish. Definitely not favoring the evening time. I just want to share one thought real quick as I'm seeing these numbers, and then I'm going to go to council and see if we can all have some discussion and see if we get some public comment. But I think about the times like springtime, especially summertime, where people are really out doing this kind of thing. And my concern when I thought about these hours was that it starts to get really hot 3 or 4 o'clock. That's like the heat of the day. And so if we were to do, like, say, I don't know, you have it up on the screen now, so like a 10 to 2, for example, if that was one of the things, then I think we're maybe it's a sweet spot because people can come out before the heat of the day. It's not too cold because it's not in the morning. Also, you mentioned about the beer. I totally agree with that. And with the band, so you're kind of midday. So morning's kind of awkward with the band and with the beer. So, I really kind of like the midday thing, and I like to see some of these numbers support that. But that's my initial thoughts. I'd like to go to, first I'd like to open public comment period. Let everybody know if you're watching this, you would like to make public comment. I will call on you after some of the council members weigh in. And so you can raise your hand on Zoom or *9. So just letting the public know. If any of the council members, I can't see you all, but if anyone wants to raise their hand, Councilman Papanow, go ahead.
Thanks. So I'm always eager to hear more public input. So I appreciate the survey. However, if you consider the population of the city and the surrounding area that we expect to draw from, you're probably talking 30,000 people. This survey represents less than, I believe, 0.1% of those people. So while I value it, I hate to make it, let it make our decision for us. It's one small piece. And I would go on to say that in Mr. Solis and Ms. Garcia, we have, I think, more expertise on operating this and, what they can expect as far as outcome, pitfalls, certainly more experience than any of us. And for my thoughts, I think we need to let them take the information, both this and what they've had before, and go out and make good results for us. I don't like the idea of sitting and trying to micromanage them, whether it's based on this Facebook poll or any of our anecdotal thoughts. So that's my thoughts and what I'd like to see.
Thank you, sir. I would like to point out 463 though, we recently had a consulting firm that we hired to do a survey for us on some other issue. And if I recall, the number was similar to this number, and that was I remember them vividly saying that was a pretty strong number, and that they usually only get like 1,000 people polled statewide when they do polls. So I think 463 is a strong number. I was actually more than I expected.
Mayor, if I can just offer some advice and some caution, that effort was done for a different set of reasons, and that was done by professional pollsters. And so I just wanted to we're talking two different things here.
No, I know that, but I'm comparing it as to a professional poll that what we were told by professionals came back and said that the number of people they polled was a very high number in their opinion. It was a solid number and it was comparable to this number. So I'm just only using that as a benchmark to the fact that 30,000 people, I with Mr. Crappen always said, we had 30,000 people and it's 500 a good snapshot. And although it may not seem like it in the world of polls, I've been told that it actually is a really good number. Anyways, I'm not just trying to discredit anything you said, Councilor Pappanow, just weighing in on that.
No, and I would agree, total number is correct. But a scientific poll, there's something to the selection, and it's not pushed by people putting something on social media with an agenda and soliciting people to go vote for things and those kind of influences. So total number, sure. Scientific selection and polling, no. So I left that part out when I first spoke, so thank you.
Any other council members want to speak, or I can go to public comment, or see if there is any public comment. Vice Mayor Sandhu. Vice Mayor, if you would like to speak, your microphone is muted.
First of all, thank you, Mr. Slees. You get the survey out there and you get the results. I believe the region, I was asking especially to get the, survey from our own community. So anything I would like to do if the community agrees. So this survey maybe not 100% right, but this survey can get us kind of idea what our constituency, what our citizen wants to do it. One thing, like in the most of the survey, they said from 10 to 2. And especially when I listening from our Mr. Slees, yes, there is alcohol involved, but there's some other, just like in 10 o'clock, might be, we have to push back to that a little bit later. Maybe this is kind of maybe 12 to 6. The one more thing, please, can you look at the next slide where it say 6 hour? Mr. Slees.
I'm sorry, can you see the screen? It says,
no, I'm talking where it say 4 hour, 5 hours, 6 hours.
So this is 6 hours. You mean the
right.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, and then also the 6 hour is most of citizen wants to open it. And I believe I'm looking at the report, Mr. Slees, the only thing if we changing from 4 to 6 hours, I believe we're losing $1,000 more, right? Right on this?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. And I believing in, I'm agree with you, all these 4 hour, 5 hour or 6 hour, M and O will be the same point, and staffing will be increased. We understand if we changing from 4 to 6 hours. Is the third thing is revenue. I would believe even a fraction of positive, the revenue should be increased if we changing from 4 to 6. And I believe on the report said revenue will not increase. There is any particular reason if we opening that 2 hour extra, are you talking about there can be anything, even a fraction will increase the revenue or no?
I don't believe by increasing the hours will increase the revenue by attracting more vendors. May I point out our current Galt market that attracts thousands and thousands of people from the region is a 7-hour market, and that's a long market, with a lot of our vendors complaining that it's too long. So it, yeah, I mean, that's where we are with our Galt market.
Okay, so that's mean within, if we increasing the 2 more hour, so there will be no extra customer will come to that time.
The customer, we're not making the money from the customer, we're making the money from the vendors. So there would be no increase in revenue from that. I'm not sure more people would come if it's extended for 2 hours.
Right. All right, and that's all. Thank you, Mr. Solis.
Mr. Mayor, I realize Councilmember Vandenberg is up, but I just wanted to emphasize a point that Director Solis just made. The revenue is driven by the vendors. And so I just wanted everybody to keep that in mind. So while we want to make sure that this is an opportunity for the public to participate, we also want to make sure that the revenue is there and that the services are there. And so the vendors have a large stake and have a large influence over how we operate. I just wanted to make that statement. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Vandenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's important to, I like the 6 hours and I would like to see it start at 10. I think that would allow people that want to avoid the summer heat time to show up. People that would like to enjoy a libation can go to a local business and do that as well. I think it gives the widest variety of options to our citizens. And it showed clearly that, you know, the expenses are nominal compared to a 4-hour. That's what I'd like to see. Thank you.
Do we have any public comment, just to check in the middle of our discussion here? Do we have any hands raised, Tina?
Mr. Wenzel has his hand raised.
Okay, Mr. Wenzel, go ahead.
Since I only use Zoom once in a while, but since I have the floor, I just want to say I'm pretty impressed with the Recreation Department lately. Man, there's some motivated guys out there. As far as we're talking about on the promenade, right? I'm a little bit behind on this subject. Are we talking downtown? Or are we talking at the Galt Market?
No,
Yes,
4th Street Promenade,
Promenade.
across from Brewster's.
Yeah, okay. So I think as far as what Sean Farmer brought up, I think that it can get brutal out there. So when you do it is very important. Shade is very important. And then I like the idea, if you're going to have the libations, push it over to the you know, the people that are downtown that have their stores. I like that idea. I hope there's enough parking down there. I was over at Galt Market today and it was not a real big day. I mean, there's a lot of wind out there and a few of those covers falling off and, you know, being torn off, but that's about all I have. I think that it's in the right direction, but I also agree that the experts are Armando and Jackie Garcia. So I think whatever they came up with, I would be favoring that. I would throw it in the hands of the experts there. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wenzel. Do we have any other comment, Tina, at this time?
Mayor, can I make a comment?
Yeah, hang on just a second, Armando, just make sure we don't have another public comment.
No more hands raised.
Go ahead, Mr. Sleece.
So one thing that I wanted to point out on this slide is that, you're at 38% at 6 hours and 34% here. You could just cut it in half and go at a 5 hour also. But I just wanted to point that out in case you missed it, just because it's, like I said, you guys didn't have time to digest these numbers. And I just wanted to point that out. That is what really caught my eye on this slide. And then, I promise you that we'll give everything we have into whatever times you guys choose, and we'll figure out something to make it work.
I appreciate that, Armando, and I do agree with you on this particular slide here. It's kind of like, it's you kind of have that like, real close percentage, although the majority 6, but 34 is very close with the other extreme, which is the 4 hours. I think just for me, I'm less hung up on the amount of hours as I am about when the hours are. I would be open-minded to a 5 hour to compromise, or a 6 hour. I mean, Mr. Vandenberg was, 6 hour. I would go with that. I would also go with the 5. I would lean more towards the 5 or the 6 than the 4, but I am of the mind that I really like the middle of the day. As you all know, I own a 4th Street business. I can only compare to what we did with the farmers market, but we don't really, there wasn't really an impact. We very rarely saw an impact for our business, but thinking about like the brewery and Brewster's, and, you have businesses that really cater towards an evening. I think that, I think it would be a very fluid thing to have an event that wraps up, say at 3 o'clock, for example, leaving time for those people to then now transition over to, say, Back Alley Brew House and have some drinks, or they transition over to Brewster's. I don't really like the idea of it overlapping with those other businesses, because I think if you're going to have beer at this market, on the promenade at 6 o'clock at night, I think you're just going to be kind of taking away from the customers of those other and then you have a parking issue, because then you have Brewster's and you have Back Alley, and they tend to do most of their business in the evening, so then you're vying for parking. That's why I really like the idea of having it during the day, and it's more like it reminds me of like a extravaganza we used to have, where it was really a fun event where people could come down and it was kind of in the middle. And I think about one of your months is going to be like a barbecue theme, so I kind of think about if it has that middle of the day, it can be like a lunch. You're not in the heat of the day, like Mr. Wenzel mentioned. I can tell you, and I know that you guys remember in the summer months, the first 2 hours of farmers market was really dead when it was hot. I mean, so you're talking your 5 and 6 o'clock, there's like nobody out there, and you started seeing people ramp up like around 7, but by then the market, was almost finished. So you'd get like an hour to maybe an hour and a half of your prime participation time. I worry about that going through the summer hours, and as you know, with our climate, we still get hot days into September and even October. So I think there's a greater span of time in our area of hotter days than there is of colder days. I think the sweet spot really is this middle, and I'm open-minded to hear what you guys like to do. I would actually like to ask, and I appreciate Jackie and Armando's opinion, and I want to ask you guys in a second here what you think, but I would actually like to ask Amy Mendez what she thinks, if she's listening on here. I know she's very active in, businesses, and she's been exposed to things like this in other towns and stuff. I would love to hear her take on this. Are you there, Amy? I don't know if she's logged off. Well, if she comes back on, I'd love to hear from her.
No, I'm still here. My apologies. I have a new puppy that I'm chasing around my office right now who is not cooperating.
Sorry, I caught you off guard when it wasn't your.
No, you are completely fine. I in kind of talking about, and we put the survey together. I'm really familiar with the market that was held in downtown Tracy. And so the market in Tracy has been wildly successful in downtown, and it starts at 8 in the morning and it goes until 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And so people shop typically for produce or artisan goods, arts and crafts, but it's a bustling market. Everybody knows it happens at 8 in the morning. They go early before it gets hot, and their market goes year round. And so, I think regardless of when you have it, it's really the product variety and what people are looking for is really what's going to be important. And so, with regards to what the input is from everybody in the community, as a resident in where I live at, if I knew the market happened at a certain time, that's when I would show up. I would make a point to go there if they were selling things that I wanted to see. The alcohol is always, I think something that people would like to see, but in the evening on a Saturday night, most of the time people have plans. And so I don't know necessarily if that's a realistic idea. So like I said, my comparison would go back to what was done in the city of Tracy, and starts at 8 in the morning. It is early, but Saturdays, a lot of people want to get out and shop and kind of get their farmers market goods purchased early and before it gets hot, because most people have plans in the afternoon on Saturdays. So that would be my feedback with regards to that topic.
Well, thank you. I do appreciate hearing that. Ms. Garcia, what are your thoughts with this survey? And I would like to hear from you.
Hello. Well, I was surprised on the survey and the response that we got. I am glad we were able to connect with the businesses downtown and get their feedback and their flexibility and willing to still partner with us on the timing. I know, as far as I can speak for myself and my event team, we're excited on whatever direction we get to be able to push out and get more vendors and continue the partnerships that we have with the businesses.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yes,
Mayor
sir.
Farman? Can I comment?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Go ahead. I didn't see who was talking. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I think you made a really good point earlier, that if we do something earlier, not to overlap with the businesses, that sweet spot in the morning where they can transition into an early dinner or some early drinks. It looks like everybody wants a mid-morning to early morning market. And I think what we have up on the screen right now might fit. We could still do things with that timing. And like I said, it goes into what you said about the transition into the other stores and businesses on 4th Street versus over, them competing against each other. Yeah.
And I was thinking as Amy Mendez was speaking, she was talking about the 8 a.m. and I think it really, I think it just depends on what the event is, because you could define a market as like, if it's a street fair or it's this, or it's a flea market. And if you give it 6 different titles, then there's actually more appropriate times for each of those identities. So that's why it is kind of difficult, because this thing, although we're kind of projecting what its identity is going to be, we're not really certain exactly what it may become or what it could evolve into. Obviously we're kind of wading into this, wading in slowly, both feet kind of filling it out. So I think that's what's kind of tricky about this, because when I ask people, they're like, well, before I answer a question, what's going to be there? And I think that dictates people's answer. I think, I look at the 8 o'clock. I don't know. I see the 10. I would be open-minded to support the 10. I would also be open-minded to supporting like a 9. Maybe we just split in the middle. But let me ask you this, Mr. Solis. I know there was talk about alcohol and music and such. I mean, could it be that we have, let's say that we do the 10 to 3, just for example. Could it be that we start at 10 o'clock, but maybe the music, the band maybe doesn't start till 11? Or the beer garden doesn't start till 11, or we don't have to have everything that we're going to have at these events be the whole time, right? couldn't we have a little overlap of a couple different, like maybe 2 different things that are special to that time, but one is more their first thing, and then the other is kind of, isn't there a possibility to do that too?
Oh no, absolutely. We've already kind of talked about that and how we would plan it. We'd have the entertainment more towards the end, maybe like a 1 to 3 with, right next to a beer garden. And do some more appropriate things for the morning part of the market.
Okay. So I'd love to, do we have any public comment? I'm going to keep checking in on that. Excuse me.
No hands raised.
Okay. Well, I'd like to hear from some other council members, but I'm really open-minded to like a 5 hour or a 6, but I'd be open-minded to either one of those, depending on what the majority of us want. And the 10 to 3 or like a 9 to 3, whatever. I do think the 3 for me, I kind of like the 3 p.m. cutoff because I feel like you're going to really start having people pack up before the heat of the day hits. I don't know. Any other, I know some of us have spoke already, but any of the council want to weigh in on what they've heard from Ms. Mendez and Ms. Garcia and Mr. Solis?
I think they've all made good points. It's up to us now. I mean, we're here for direction, so it's up to us to decide, maybe how many hours and what time to start. And, as far as beer gardens and bands, I would gladly leave that up to the professionals, Mr. Solis, and because sometimes it's just a matter of who can schedule what when. So for me, I'd like to stick to just the start times and the duration.
Yeah. Councilman Lozano, you had your hand up.
Yeah. So my take on this is I appreciate the work that staff has done in the last 2 weeks to gather additional information on what the desires of a portion of the community are, and I think they've come to some or synthesize this data and come to some additional pieces of information that will help the events that they're planning to be productive. I think last meeting we made the policy decision to have it, and that's what our role is. And so my take on it is, let's do whatever we can get the most community members there to do, and the best and most vendors, and allow our staff to run with it, and do a good job. I struggle with having this detail of conversation at a council meeting when in reality we've already made the decision to do it. So let's just get it done. But having said all that, I do have extreme faith in our staff, and as Mr. Wenzel pointed out, I too believe that they can do a good job and take the bull by the horns and make it work. So I'm comfortable with anything, and I just want a market, and it looks like we're going to do it. So that's all I have.
All right, thank you, sir. Let me ask you this, Mr. Solis. So do you have any, beings that, there's been 2 of our council members have expressed, that they want to see more of this dictated by yourselves. And I think there's a couple of us that are, wanting to be more weighing in on this, and I respect all that. How do you feel about, in your opinion, what are your personal feelings, you and Jackie, as the people that are, spearheading this, about going with the 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. with the 5 hour? Would that be something that you would feel comfortable with, or do you not? I mean, I want you to be frank with us.
I have faith in myself and Jackie and our staff that we can make anything work. If it's your desire to go mid-morning, we'll have to sit down and really pencil some things out, because like I said, we had all our events targeted towards the evening, with the music, with the beer, but this is something that we can do also between 10 and 3. We just need to figure out the logistics of it, the timing of it, and the availability of it, of some of the vendors.
Okay, well, I would entertain another idea from anyone, but if no one wants, if people are kind of open-minded, I would like to suggest that we try out the 10 to 3. And again, open to hear from my 4 constituents if they want to make a different something there. But I would say compromise between the 4 and the 6 and go with the 5 hour, do a 10 to 3. That's what I would like to see. That's my vote. I think my direction. Does anyone want to, Mr. Vandenberg?
Thank you. I could support that. I would like to see it longer. Most importantly is to serve the people, and in the long run, we want to generate enough support that it can expand and grow and become profitable. So, giving the citizens the largest options, I think, is important, but I certainly could support a 10-3.
Mr. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm agree with everybody, opinion is 10-3, but most of our survey says 6 hours. If there is a possibility for 10-4, I'm leaning towards, but otherwise I'm agree with you guys, whatever you decide.
Well, I'm just looking for a consensus here. That's just my suggestion. If you, Councilman Vandenberg, are okay with 10-3, I know that Councilman Papineau and Lozano have expressed that they're willing to put more of the decision making into the staff hands. So I respect that. It's just why I was trying to get their take. So, Mr. Papineau, go ahead.
I'm not going to take a position on the details of time of day or length, because, as I stated before, I think they have the expertise. They came up with the plan. We made the decision, for them to operate. Operating is their job. And, success or failure, they're going to get credit or blame. And if there's a failure, people who pushed for certain hours or certain things based on, their anecdotal beliefs, are certainly not going to be willing to step up and say, oh, well, that was wrong. So, I still say they're the ones that are on the hook for it. And we're the ones that hired them to do a job. And I think they should take this information and everything that they have in their experience and expertise and do what they think is going to be the most successful.
Well, and I respect you. I respect that. But I think that, we were the ones that kind of were pushing to have something on the weekend. So I think that, the fact that we were driving this, I think, I feel like we should, and I'm not afraid to say if this is not successful, these hours, we're all in this together. I mean, this is not just like, oh, well, Parks and Rec, they just didn't, whatever, or it's all the council's fault. All of us are in this together. This is a task that we win or we fail together. And so I'm willing to accept that and take that onto my shoulders. I would like to move forward with the 10-3. That's I think, and again, I think there's always some tweaking that could be done as we go through, later on and reevaluate where we're at. But if our staff thinks that they could make a 10-3, if they would be willing to go forward with that and make it go with that, and they're confident in their team, then that's what I would like to see. Councilman Vandenberg.
Anybody that's willing to answer the question, but at this point, it's our responsibility to give direction, meaning in my eyes, that means selecting a time of day. And that's simply direction that we were asked to provide, correct?
I think we have enough consensus here to move. I think we all agree, the market, it's going to move forward, like Rich said, which is a good thing. Three of us seem to have a consensus on the hours. Councilman Papineau is, really leaving it up to staff. Staff seems to concede that these hours are workable. So I think, are we done here? Are you happy with the direction we've given you, Mr. Solis?
10-3 on Saturdays and move forward on 4th Street Promenade.
Okay. Do we have any other public comment, Tina, since we've been discussing?
No hands raised. Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and close the public comment period on this. And I don't know, this is not, sorry, let me go back to my page I was on here. So we were just providing direction, so no formal action. I think we've given that. Is it the direction clear enough, Mr. Hines?
The direction is clear.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for your input. And again, thank you, staff, for doing this for us and making this effort. And I wish you success. So moving on to our next item, Human Resources Department, we have the subject is going to be the approval of amended permit technician 1/2 job specification to establish an entry-level position. Ms. Van Stein.
Yes, good evening again, council. I'm going to see if I can share my screen. That's not it. I can't seem to find it. Show all. Oh, this is the packet. Oh, here we go. Sorry about that. Okay, what we have before you this evening is an amended job description for our permit technician. What we would like to do is create an entry level. So our existing permit technician is more of a journey level. It requires 2 years of building or permit experience. What the community development department would like to do is create a level 1 in addition to that, right under the journey level. We did meet with the Galt Public Service Unit, bargaining unit, a couple of months ago. They represent this job classification, and their union was very supportive of the change. We all think that it will broaden our eligibility pool when we have vacancies. We also think it opens the door for advancement for any of their existing GPSU members that might qualify at the entry level permit technician level 1. We did discuss with them the proposed salary that we're recommending, which is up here on the staff report. So we're recommending with the level 1, we would place it at wage grade 34. And that's similar to the public works supply technician position and also the water systems operator 1 position at the city. And the existing permit technician, we're not recommending any salary change. Again, we're just recommending a job title change for that. On the fiscal analysis, there is no fiscal impact. We're not asking for any kind of budget amendment because in the community development department budget, it's already approved that they can have the permit technician. So that's already established in their budget. And with that, I can open it up to any questions that you might have.
Sorry, just trying to turn my video back on. Councilman Lozano, go ahead.
Yeah, I just have a couple of questions, and I apologize for not getting these to you, questions to you earlier, Ms. Van Stein. So this process is a meet and confer process with labor, correct?
It is, yeah.
Okay.
Any time that we're amending the requirements or significant changes to a job description, we do have to meet with the bargaining unit.
Okay. And the other question is in terms of the job salary classification, and I don't want to open up a big can of worms, but I may here. How does that type of job classification compare to similar responsibilities within the city? Does that make sense?
Yeah. It is matching to, and we basically placed it as based on internal equity within our organization. Okay. And so I would say it's similar to the water systems operator 1, which is an entry level job classification, because we also have a water systems operator 2. Okay. And if you can see it actually on the salary schedule here, where the water systems operator 2 is the same level as the permit technician 2.
Okay. And then lastly, I just don't want to assume anything, but I just want to ask that the bargaining unit was in agreement with this process and the fact that this will provide some additional upward mobility for their unit members?
Yes, that's exactly right. They were very happy when we took it to them. I mean, this is really, these are the kind of things that they do bring up when we have meetings with them. They understand the importance of growth from within the organization. So they were very pleased with it.
Well, I thank you for the work on this. I have no other questions, but I also want to thank Mr. Hoffman for taking a look at this internally within his own department and creating additional opportunities for both recruitment and retention. And you know, we talk about recruitment and retention of many different classifications, but I think some of the other ones that are less out in the public are important to continue to do. And so thank you, Mr. Hoffman and Ms. Van Stein, for your work on this. I appreciate it. And I have no other questions, and I'm willing to support this.
If I could respond back to Councilman Lozano's, I would love to take ownership of this, but I actually can't. It starts with Armando basically saying we have amazing part-time employees that really want the opportunity to work for the city of Galt in a full-time position. And I had the opportunity to steal a great staff member from him, and I'm sorry about that, Armando. And it also goes back to our city manager talking about investment in our employees and, again, upward mobility. And we just have so many talented people, and they just need an opportunity. And this is what this is really about, is opportunity. So again, I'd like to take the credit for being gifted, but I'm going to have to give it to other people. I will take credit that Nicole Blossman is just amazing. She's doing a fantastic job for us. This is a position in our department. We've had 2 people turn over in 2.5 years, and it's an investment in our community. It's hiring somebody who's going to be here, and I'm excited about what our staff's looking like in community development.
And I appreciate that, and you're also humble, but you are the director of community development, and that's where this lies. I do like, in addition, I do like the fact that we're doing some cross-pollination, and I know you've stolen some folks, and other departments have stolen from other departments, but that's a good thing because they will come back, and if we continue to train our staff and provide upward mobility, they all seem to come back around, right? Even if they leave. So I appreciate that, and thank you.
Thank you, sir. Are we going to need to start like a free agency program with some of our employees if they're going to be trading teams as often as this? Curious.
Usually it's Parks and Rec and Public Works that trade employees.
Are we going to institute a salary cap?
At the beginning of the year, everybody's going to line up and everybody gets to pick their team, you know, like when you were kids. I pick so-and-so. So-and-so. All right, Mr. Vandenberg, you have a comment?
You know, everybody basically took care of my question. The city's going to provide more opportunity to employees while giving themselves, you know, better opportunity to fill needs. So it's hard not to support that. Thank you.
So I have a question, Ms. Van Stein, just so I'm understanding this, and maybe for the people at home. So we don't necessarily have a technician. So we don't have a technician 1 and 2 positions. We just have one. And the understanding, the way I'm reading the staff report, is that the experience and the job that the only technician person is doing is more in line with a permit to like a upper, not an entry level, but more of a second level position. So what you're wanting to do is basically reward that person's what they're doing now with their job with a more appropriate wage that should be more in line with what they're doing. And then so in order to do that, you create a lower position in entry level. And even though we don't have someone necessarily, we're not actually hiring for that as of this moment, we could eventually in the future fill that. Is that about right?
So what happened in this particular case, Craig lost somebody to another agency. And so when he was looking at opening the position up, we had some good internal candidates in the Parks and Rec department, but they were not going to meet the minimum qualifications to qualify at our permit technician, which is a journey level. And so we started looking at other agencies, and a lot of other agencies do have a level 1 as an entry level first and a level 2. So he ended up hiring someone as an office assistant. So she's, I don't know how long she's been in that position, at least a few months, I would say. November.
Since September, yeah.
Oh, September. So she's learning the counter there and the permit technician responsibilities. Within a year, she will qualify at the level 1.
Okay. I just trying to understand that, you know, I kind of made sense, but I was just trying to understand. And just for the record, you know, Armando wasn't the only one that got a bad deal shake out of that. So anyways, all right.
Sorry, Mayor.
I support what we're looking at here, and I think it's the right thing to do. And I applaud you know, management for allowing the you know, the opportunity for people to be able to progress up in our city and not become complacent in one spot. So I think it's good to retain people. So I don't have any issue with this, and I would support it.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Ms. Rhines.
I also wanted to point out for the public viewing that back on January 18th, council adopted the strategic plan for the next couple of years. One of the items in that plan was a priority regarding internal succession planning. So I wanted the public to be able to see the nexus between the policy decisions that council made with those strategic plans and staff actually doing specific actions to accomplish that policy. And so this action falls under the internal succession planning priority. And that's all I wanted to say, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, yeah, thanks for sharing that. Indeed. Vice Mayor Sandu.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just would like to make a comment. Thank you, Weinstein, and also thank you, Mr. Hoffman. On this agenda item is very clear, so I will support on that. That's all.
All right.
Great, thank you.
So do we need a formal vote on this? It doesn't say formal action.
Frank, I'm not sure. We did prepare a resolution.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't, on the agenda, it doesn't state as an action item, but although it seems like it is.
Yeah, yes, Mayor. You are approving the amended position, and there's a resolution. So just a motion to approve staff's recommendation.
Okay.
Would be in order.
Okay. Do we have any public comment on this item?
No public comment.
Okay, if you would like to make public comment, again, raise your hand if you are viewing on Zoom, or you can press *9 if you are calling on the phone. The number is posted on the agenda. I'll give a few seconds more to allow for public comment before we wrap up that period. All right, do we have any public comment, Tina?
No hands raised.
Okay, well, with that, I'll close public comment on this item, and I'll look for a motion to approve the establishment of a permit technician 1 job classification and amend the existing permit technician job classification to be renamed permit technician 2. Approve the proposed job specification and establish a salary range for permit technician 1.
So moved.
Moved by Councilman Lozano, and I will second that. Can I have a roll call, please?
Vice Mayor Sandu,
Aye.
Councilmember Papineau,
Aye.
Councilmember Vandenberg,
Aye.
Councilmember Lozano,
Aye.
Mayor Farmer.
Yes. Approved 5-0. Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to our next item, Public Works Department. Item is going to be the sewer lateral maintenance ordinance amendment. Mr. Selling?
Good evening, Mayor and fellow council members. I'm trying to hopefully get my screen up here. Does that look right?
Does to me.
Yes, sir. Go
Okay,
ahead.
great. So you can see just the one slide, I take it? No?
No, we can see the whole PowerPoint screen.
Oh, okay. Let's try this again, maybe. It doesn't seem to want to go to the full slide. So I guess we'll make do.
Mike, why don't you just go with the PowerPoint screen and you can just sort of page your way through it.
Yeah, I'll do that. Okay. All right, so good evening again. And this item is to consider amending the language of the city's sanitary sewer connection ordinance. And hopefully this will advance. I'll do it this way. So some background, the city's sewer connection ordinance was last updated in 2009. That update added language that gave the city authority to abate a blockage issue on the private property if it was determined that blockage or issue was creating an imminent health and safety risk, though no context beyond that was given for the change in the ordinance at that time. It was mainly a part of several ordinance updates that were done. The city's current ordinance wording requires the property owners to maintain the full limits of the lateral line, i.e. from the home all the way to the main line out in the street with regard to blockages. However, the key issue in the current ordinance language is that unless caused by the property owner, the city is required to replace damaged or deteriorated portions in the city right-of-way at city expense, rather than the property owner. This came up a few months ago through Public Works responding to multiple sewer blockage calls that we received. So following those calls and looking at our language and seeing that it was the city's responsibility, we did some checking around with the other agencies as to what their situation is and where they assign responsibility. And so what we found from checking around is that responsibility varies. Some jurisdictions are the same as Galt, as our current ordinance. And for example, Elk Grove, who's served by the Regional Sanitation District, they are the same as us, to where in the city right-of-way that the sewer agency is responsible for replacing or repairing damaged lines. While others, and the city of Sac is a prime example in our area, basically puts the responsibility on the property owner entirely. So the other thing that we found out is in some jurisdictions, and this is primarily the case in the Bay Area, where the water table is high, it's near the surface, typically within a few feet to several feet of the surface. What happens is if you get a line that's damaged, broken, where that groundwater can get in, it's additional water volume that the city or agency has to treat through their treatment plant. And so what they have opted in those areas to do is to take that responsibility for repairing those lines because it's a lot cheaper to repair them than it is to treat, you know, an ongoing leak of groundwater. So anyway, for us, having had a few issues come up last fall and starting our rate study, the policy question essentially has come up as to whether we want to keep the same situation to where the city would repair or replace those damaged lines in the city right of way, or if we want to change our ordinance language and shift that to the property owner. And the, you know, I guess the connection there is if we leave it as is, we'll need to build that cost, those costs for doing those line repairs and replacements into the new rates. And the other thing about it is, so if we keep it the same way it is with city staff making those repairs, it puts the burden on our staff and equipment resources. because as we can all understand that any sewer line blockages require immediate attention. It's not something you can put off and schedule, next week or something. So this slide, and hopefully you can see that. This shows a typical lateral connection graphically. So you can see the home, and I'll try to use my cursor here to hopefully help out. So the home or private property, here's the lateral connection to that structure, and basically runs out down to the city main, which is in the street. This is depicted as the gray area here would be the public street. In that line, there's typically one or a couple of cleanouts. This is for, if someone has a blockage, as our ordinance states, that they would typically get a plumber to come and, sorry about that, to come and unblock that, and that's how they access it, is through those cleanouts. So the dividing line really comes at the property line. Blockages the whole way are the property owner's responsibility, but any repairs or damages become the city's responsibility, basically, from the property line out to the street, or any damages or repairs behind the property line are the property owner's responsibility. So this is the language that's in the current ordinance, and what you're seeing here is the proposed changes if we were to shift the responsibility. And the new language, new text is underlined, as you can see here, within the premises, and text proposed to be deleted is shown as a strike through on this. And so that's essentially the change that we're putting forth to the council for a potential policy shift on this. And so with that, Mayor and council members, that concludes my presentation, and I'm available to answer any questions.
Mike, could you last slide?
Sure. Can you see that?
Yeah. So I'm just trying to understand. Somebody's got their mic on, or they're an echo back here. Okay, maybe that's better. So I'm just trying to understand here. So currently, what you're saying is that there's a blockage from the house to the main line, to the main street, to the street. The property owner is responsible for having a plumber come out, use the clean outs or whatever, and clear the blockage actually all the way even under the street to the main. But if there is a damage, but if the pipe is damaged, say like from the sidewalk where the property owner's property ends out to the street, if there's damage to that, then the city then makes that repair to the pipe. Am I understanding that correctly?
That's exactly accurate, Mayor. Yes.
Okay. So and we're wanting to shift that to where it says that not only are they responsible for cleaning and clean out all the way to clean out their whole line all the way to the main line, but if there is a breakage or whatever, we want that responsibility to shift onto the property owner. That's what we're looking at doing with this.
Yes, that's the suggested change, and again, it's and I probably didn't say it real well before, but essentially, when we look at these types of issues, we look at what is the public, benefit or risk. And so when you look at a sewer line that's serving a private property, that lateral is really, there's no risk to the public if it were to become blocked or damaged. It's really, the property owner is the one who's benefiting from that lateral line. So unless there's a case like I noted, with the near surface groundwater.
Okay. It says here, property owner, and it says unless such damage was caused by the city or its representative. So what I'm concerned with is the language there. Like, can you pull that slide up that shows the picture of the home and the pipe?
Yes.
So my concern would be here. Let's say that property owner. I'll wait till you get that picture up.
Oh, did I get it? Sorry, there you go.
So my concern would be here is, let's say property owner, he has a blockage and he's like, I got a plumber out. We've done the clean out over and over, and we're still having issues. We think that after expenses to the homeowner, they've determined that maybe there's something wrong, with the pipe. I could completely understand, like, the pipe, if it's damaged under the homeowner's property, that it should be totally, absolutely responsible. But for me, I kind of have a struggle with saying that the property should be responsible for a pipe when you get out under the sidewalk, under the tree. What if that tree, for example, between the sidewalk and the street, what if that tree is a city tree and that roots have caused that problem? I mean, does that now fall into the, I mean, is it, well, that's the city's responsibility now because it's the city's tree? Or what if the problem comes because the roadway hasn't been properly maintained and there's been like sinkholes or something happened on the roadway from vehicles or whatever? And then, so that's one concern, is you now have the homeowner being responsible for stuff that's off-site of their property. The second thing I would be concerned with would be that you now have people being required to pay for something that could be, you know, because I actually remember there a citizen I knew of that had this situation, and there was it was like months and months worth of plumbers coming out and, you know, snaking it. And they were like, well, we think the blockage is at 150 feet. So they started measuring out and figuring out if that was actually out into the in the street, or if it was still in the property. And there was this whole, like, you know, splitting hairs to see exactly how far the breakage, to see who was going to be responsible, or, you know, what the problem was. And so I worry about, you know, you have now somebody hiring, you know, third-party company, although they would have to abide by guidelines. I understand that, coming out and, you know, jackhammering up our public street to make a repair. I just don't know how I feel about that. So I just feel like, I don't know, it just feels to me like I don't know why a homeowner would be responsible for pipes that something happens when it's completely off their property. I don't, you know, and I don't see how a blockage would cause I mean, I guess a blockage could cause a break in a pipe, but I think that a structural break in a pipe that could be, you know, require jackhammering the road up and all that seems to be more likely from age, or you know, a pipe that was put in the ground, you know, from 1940, or, you know, whatever, or tree roots or something like that, is more likely than it being the homeowner's fault, more so to speak, because of something they put down their toilet. That's just my thoughts. I don't know. Do you have any, I mean, do you have any comment on that, or you want to see?
Yeah, no, you make some good points. The thing with the tree roots issue, so they're currently responsible to, you know, clear that blockage of tree roots, where to block it, like you said, if out here, and, you know, even if this is a city tree, right now, the way the ordinance reads, it's still the homeowner's responsibility to clear any blockages. So that would include from tree roots. Now, if the tree roots were actually damaging the pipe, you know, and that's probably a bit of a gray area. You know, we'd have to look at what, you know, on a case-by-case basis as far as what the video would show. But it is the homeowner's responsibility to have a plumber or whatever video the line, and then we look at it. And the way it reads right now, we would look at the video, and this is what happened in one case specifically last fall, is we looked at it and it was, okay, yes, the line is damaged, and we went and repaired it, and that was a little over $7,000 to do that. So that can happen, and it's really going to be a case-by-case basis as far as the video. If the pipe was crushed or something from, you know, if, like you say, the road wasn't maintained, or we had a contractor working in there, something that we can clearly, you know, and you can assign that, you know, if it's related to the contractors or the city's, you know, construction activities, we could probably tie it back pretty quick and take responsibility for that, which would put it on the city at city expense if us or our contractor were deemed responsible. Sometimes, yeah, these things do get into a gray area, and so fair enough point there. So it would be, again, a case-by-case basis. We'd have to look at it. So, but that would be the extent of my response to your comments.
So, because, yeah, I feel like what we're doing is kind of creating a gray area where it's like we can get in a situation where we say, you know what, nope, it's the homeowner's responsibility. And then they hire a company to come out, and that company, you know, after uprooting the road or whatever, they say, oh, you know, actually that was caused by whatever. And then maybe we have city staff saying, no, I don't agree with that assessment. And then you have conflicting opinions from a private company to the city. I feel like the overlap of responsibility there can create some really sticky situations. Whereas if there was just a definitive, you know, if it's on your property, I don't care if the pipe is, you know, from 1920 or whatever, if it's under your property, then you are responsible if the damage is under your property. But if it's in the city right away, then it's the city. I just feel like, and again, we don't even have that. It's actually already kind of shifted more towards the property owner could bear cost the way the ordinance stands right now. I'm concerned because I know the amount of, and I've been told when in conversations with yourself and other public works that there is a certain, amount of underground stuff that in the city that is aged out. And so I feel like we're going to be now shifting that onto the property owners. And I just don't know if I feel comfortable with that. What about, do you know if homeowners, so does homeowners insurance cover work on city property? Because if it doesn't, then how many people are going to be able to afford to burn a $7,000 repair if they don't have, if insurance doesn't cover those types of things? Do you know?
Yeah, I do not know, and I don't know if the city attorney may have any sense of that or not. I don't know. It might depend on the policy, as to how robust it is or not. I would think it to be unlikely, but possible. But it's not something that I would think would be typical.
Okay. We have lots of hands up here. Thank you, Mike. I'm gonna go to I would start with city attorney real quick. Mr. Splendario, do you want to make a comment? I can't hear you. I think you're muted.
All right, I'll figure it out one of these days. Just to quickly address the gray area issue that's been addressed or brought up, so to speak. The language as drafted actually creates no more of a gray area, technically speaking, as the prior language. What it's doing is it's shifting the presumption from the city's responsibility unless the property owner causes it. It's switching it from that presumption to the presumption that it's going to be the property owner's responsibility unless the city causes it. So there always exists the potential for a factual dispute as to what caused it. And there's no way around it. You can't draft an ordinance that's going to draft away that potential factual dispute, because there's just always going to be that, well, my plumber said this, well, my expert said this. There's going to be that battle of experts or battle of what happened, so to speak. And so all this does is shift the initial presumption from the city's responsibility unless caused by the property owner to property owner's responsibility unless caused by the city. But there would be that possibility of dispute regardless. So I just want to address that. And I would also say, even if we took out the language, whether it said it's this property owner's responsibility unless caused by the city or vice versa, if we take out the language that says unless clause, unless the damage was caused by the city or unless the damage was caused by the property owner, the other party would still have that as a defense. So that's going to exist by operation of law anyways, as far as, hey, if you go out and do something and it's your fault, the law, just general legal principles, are going to allow that person to say, I shouldn't have to pay for that because that was your fault. So introducing that language also won't create the ambiguity. So I just kind of want to address that. And then as far as the homeowner's insurance, candidly, I don't know. But I don't know if the homeowner's insurance policy, if it does cover the blockage in the line, I don't know if the homeowner's policy would actually stop coverage, so to speak, at the property line. But I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I know Mike asked, maybe the city attorney did, but I don't know the answer to that right now as I sit.
All right. Well, thank you for expanding on the things that you were. I have Mr. Hines and then Councilman Lozano. Mr. Hines, go ahead.
Before we proceed, Mike, can you explain the nexus between what we're trying to do here and the overall rates for water sewer?
Yeah, so the way the language is currently written, with the city essentially responsible in the right of way at city expense, and again, as I touched on, we've started the cost of service study. If we're to keep the language as is and make no change, then we would need to build in a portion of the rates to cover these costs, based on a certain number of these older connections, which we're starting to see fail, that have been in the ground 50, 70 years or more. And so we would build that into the rates. I don't have a real good sense of that. I had a brief conversation with Councilman Vandenberg, who asked a couple questions this afternoon. We did some quick math. I would say, you're probably looking at 20 to 30% of the city's sewer connections. If we estimated, we might be looking at, an average of say 10 of these connection repairs a year, at roughly say $7,000 or something like that. You're probably looking at it affecting folks, at the most, I would hope a couple of $2-3 a month in their rate. So you can figure probably in the $20-25 more a year added to their sewer rate. I would expect something along those lines. But again, I would just say that is just a real quick off the cuff, numbers, and I would want our consultant to do a real detailed evaluation to have a better sense of what that rate impact might be. And again, it would be for everybody, so you would have potentially all rate payers supplementing, those with these older connections that are more likely to need replacement.
So, Mr. Mayor, I submit to you, there's the policy question. Do we want to pass the cost? Because currently the way the law is written, the ordinance is written, these repairs are being made and not being supported by revenue. And this, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, this is an enterprise fund, right?
Correct.
Okay, so it's meant to operate as a business, which means that there's no gifts. And so whenever there's expenditures, there should be an offsetting revenue. And the way this language is written, there will be expenditures, but there'll be no offsetting revenue. And so we are merely just trying to correct this language. And essentially, does the city retain the liability to replace these sewer mains or these laterals, and build that into the rate so all the ratepayers pay for that service? Or do we give it to the individual homeowners and let them pay for that service? And so I wanted everybody just to have a different context, a greater context for the policy question here. Mike, am I incorrect?
No, that's accurate.
Okay. And Mr. Mayor, that concludes the comments thus far.
Okay, I have some thoughts again, but I want to go to my other council members who have their hands up. Councilman Lozano, go ahead.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting topic. And it always starts when you're trying to justify rates, or not even justify rates, but take a look at your rates, and so these things come up, right? And I don't necessarily have any initial desire either way. Most of my questions were just answered by the city manager and his exchange with Mr. Selling. It would seem to me that truly the real question is do we retain that, or do we pass and potentially, well, not potentially, but the rates will be raised, or do we continue, or do we have the homeowner pay for it? And so, I had a couple of questions about what the lateral does, and that was a great depiction of the house and the pipe that really worked. And Mr. Selling, that's all of my questions that I had for you today were right there. So I appreciate that. So yeah, it would be a big hit to have a $7,000 bill, right? And on the other hand, the city has to be responsible for that. Then we're going to have to figure out how to pay for it. And so, really, I guess that's the crux of the question. I would be interested in seeing some more data on really what that would mean to each individual property owner, both on the commercial and residential side, if it would be different. I don't know that it would, but we would definitely have to. I would prefer, and I don't know if we have to do this by law, but if we're going to do something like that and increase the rate and have a specific rate for repair of lateral lines, that we put that into a fund separate from other revenues if we can for the sewer, so that when those things happen, that we have that fund to go to and we can see how much money is in there and how much we're collecting over time, and just to ensure that we're not spending more out of it than we're taking in, and having a midpoint adjustment if we need it, or you know, and so we're accountable, so it's transparent and accountable where that money's going out of a bill, and what its intended use is, and making sure that that's what we intend to do. Now, I'm not saying that I'm that's my position. I certainly want to hear from others, but that's really the question: is do we keep it the responsibility and raise the rate of to pay for it, or do we shift it to the homeowner? So thank you, and I look forward to the continued discussion.
So I'm trying to think of this from a citizen standpoint. So let me ask you this. So let me get this straight. So there's no maintenance. There's nothing in our rate structure now that people pay that's set aside for maintenance. Like you don't, you know, none of our rates that a homeowner pays for sewer is earmarked for maintenance issues like this. Am I correct on that?
Well, it depends on how you define maintenance. And I think if I understand what you're asking, there's no portion of the current rates that those revenues are intended to do any of these lateral line repairs or replacements. There is funding, a portion of the rates pay for the general maintenance of the main lines, if you will, and the treatment plant and lift stations and the major elements of the system, but not for the individual laterals.
So yeah, and to make it a little more specific, that question is, if 20 or 30% of our existing, as you stated, are aging out and in need of repair, and you're estimating possibly up to 10 repairs a year being needed, it's what I would say is no part of our rates that we currently pay to the city are set aside to maintain that. And when you said, well, what do you mean by maintenance? What I mean is it's like this. Let me put it a different way. It's like you're charging. Let's say I'm the homeowner. I mean, so I am a homeowner in Galt, but let's just to be neutral, to say Joe Schmo homeowner. He's being charged to use our services, but then you're also going to then charge him to maintain the infrastructure for those services. And that, to me, I just don't. It seems a little like, I don't think it's fair to penalize someone who lives in a house on Palin Avenue, for example, because the street, those houses were built in 1960s, and the main connection down the street where these split offs, these lateral connections are. I don't think it's fair to penalize them, because it's more likely that there could be a break out in the street, whatever, than it is because, or someone that bought a house over, off of Marengo that's only like 2 years old. I understand that somebody's got to pay for it, and I guess what I'm hearing is like, well, we either got to make people pay for these, or we got to add it into their rates. But I think as the taxpayer is going to say, or ratepayer, should I say, they're going to say, well, I already pay rates, and I pay sewer rates, and they are always climbing and becoming higher. And now I'm being told that not only am I paying for the service, but now you're going to make me be responsible for what could potentially be, a 60-year-old infrastructure that now I'm going to be footing the bill for, if it happens to be, 25 feet off my property in the middle of Lincoln Way or something. That's my problem with this.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir, go ahead.
If I may, and I apologize for violating protocol with my hand up there, but I think what Director Selling is saying, in the calculation of the current rates, there is no element or no factor built into those current rates that affect or that take into consideration sewer lateral replacement. And so if council chooses to go with the way the ordinance is currently written, they will now have to factor that in to the rate recalculations going forward. And we wanted to bring this to you just just so we can put the policy question before you. Mr. Selling, am I incorrect?
No, that's correct.
Okay, so it is merely, there's an element there that isn't there. These rate calculations are pretty complex. We did them over in my old city. And yes, sewer lateral replacement is a component within these rate calculations. And so there's a number of other components as well, but this component isn't there. And I don't know if this is an oversight on past staff and councils, but we're trying to correct this and make sure that this component is properly stated. Again, because this is an enterprise fund and subject to audit.
What fund, and I know Councilman Vandenberg wants to speak, just real quick question, then I'm going to go on to him. So what fund have these repairs has been used to repair so far? Is it that fund? And if so, is it causing that fund to be, over budget, and we're going into some kind of reserve that we have for that? Or can you elaborate?
It's coming from the enterprise fund that supports our wastewater enterprises. And it's not a matter of whether or not the expenditure is running the fund into a deficit or creating some sort of negative impact on the fund. It's the policy of the fund. The fact that it's an enterprise fund indicates that all revenues, all expenditures have to be supported by like revenues. And there has to be an attempt to make sure that those expenditures are recovered by proper revenues, which is why the rate studies are done every so often to ensure that the expenditures and the revenues are in line. And what staff is merely bringing to you is there's a category of expenditure that isn't included in the rates that we now need to include should council desire to leave this language the way it is. So it's more about the philosophy of the fund as to whether or not this is creating a problem with the fund. It's an enterprise fund. It's a totally different animal than the general fund or any of the governmental funds that we have. It's a business type fund.
Mr. Vandenberg, sorry to make you wait. Go ahead.
Sorry, sir.
That's quite all right. Thank you, Mayor. City Manager Hines, thank you for pointing that out. And it's simply, if I may reiterate in a simpler fashion, it's simply a new problem has arisen, and the city is prudently looking forward in the coming years that this new problem must be funded. So that's the rate increase or the rate analysis is coming up, and it's now time to decide whether we need to add this to the rate analysis or not. Correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. So just real quick, if you could go back to that picture, that's it should be noted that, correct me if I'm wrong, anytime along what I'm talking, this is, just a stereotypical version. Some pipelines, some main lines may be further out in the street, some may be closer, some deeper, some shallower. It just all depends on the individual home. It also is, as stated earlier, only the older homes, so it may also be affecting older community that is based on a bit more fixed income in general, a community that is maybe not so economically advantaged. I would also say that if we're talking about the scenario in the photo, we're asking the citizens to dig up city streets and repave and repack and pay for the digging up of the line into city property, clearly the city property, being the tar and all that, and then paying for all that to be filled back in. Whether you think that's, fair or not is up for debate, but I just wanted to point those things out. And also, correct me if I'm wrong, Director Sellings, per our conversation, and this is just a rough guesstimate, that at 7,000, 8,000, always going up, it could be roughly $40,000 to $50,000 a year for the city and additional expenditures to cover the random occurrence of these failures.
Yes, potentially that $40,000 to $50,000 number. Again, if you're talking maybe anywhere from a handful to 10 or 12 of these a year, and again, as you noted, depending on how deep, how far, where the main is in comparison to the home. A lot of factors can affect, what the cost is. I would tell you that we replaced 12 feet of pipe on a second one this past fall, and that was a little over $4,000. So, one was 4, another one was a little over 7 that we've done a couple in the last 3 or 4 months. So there's just kind of, a couple of real world examples from, the recent past. So again, I would want the consultant, I'm just kind of throwing out a few numbers just for, understanding this item right now. But, we would definitely expect to see more of these occur as time marches on.
I think, so 2 thoughts, Mike. One is that scenario you just mentioned about the recent repair. What do you recall was the cause in that particular instance? What was the cause of the breakage or the?
Yes, so on one of them, the one with the 12 feet, that was a little over $4,000. It was an old style of pipe that was used, from probably the 40s or 50s up through the 80s. It's called Orangeburg pipe, and it's poor material. It's essentially wood and tar kind of combination. It was kind of like the precursor to plastic. Is probably the best way to put it. And it tends to collapse. It's much more prone to, root intrusion and that kind of thing. And so it was a significant section that had collapsed. And so that was the cause there. On the deeper one, again, old material, even older than that, as I recall. I think it was something from even earlier decades. I don't think it was even Orangeburg, but I'd have to confirm with staff. So anyway, that one was deeper, and hence the additional expense.
So so thinking, just to be clear for the public that might be listening, or conversation that might happen after this, this enterprise fund. I mean, what basically you're saying is, because you talk about it's like a business fund, and I just want to be clear that it's not going to be like, I mean, there's clearly a risk, there's clearly a concern that upcoming future repairs, as you're seeing them in the city for this type of thing, are going to put a burden where they're not, the expenditures are going to be not covered by the revenues. Because if that wasn't the case, and you said, well, there's plenty of money to cover them, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now, right?
No, not exactly. I think as a city manager kind of touched on, essentially when they do the rate analysis to determine what the rates are, and there's a certain amount of capital replacement that's programmed in for the various elements that the city is responsible for. And from what we've determined, the current rates did not account for any lateral, repairs or replacements. It was strictly for the mains and the lift stations and the greater treatment plant elements. So there is a capital component to the rates that does not include this. And again, this would be an incremental, increase to add this. Again, I can't speak to, whether it was an oversight by, folks in the past, but it's something that, like I said, it's come up, a few times now in the past several months, and with the rate study, we wanted to put the policy question to the council as to, which way we would want to proceed.
So, actually, I'm going to let Councilor Papineau chime in here. Go ahead.
So you've all pretty much answered most of the questions I had written down, except for 2 things we've talked about that I don't believe we have the answers to tonight, that I think would be important to decide whether we put this in the fund and it raises the rates. One is, we need to find out generally if this is something that homeowners insurance is going to cover. Pretty much everybody's got it. And if that's the case, then it wouldn't, necessarily put people in that hard of a bind when there's a failure. And then secondly, appreciate Director Selling's rough estimate, $2 to $3 a month increase, something like that. But just kind of a little bit more reliable estimate on that, as best we can. I understand it's not an exact science, so that we can make a better decision as to whether we should roll this into this fund or and pass it on, or if we should just shift it back to the catastrophic expense of the property owner when the time comes. So I think those two things probably be helpful to answer before we try and go forward with too much of a decision yet.
Well, I would too like to see what the rates could be, but I could say even at this early point right now, I don't think I'd be in favor of putting this onto the homeowner just as an outright cost, because in my opinion, your older homes, your majority of your older homes are going to be owned by possibly older people. Now I know that's maybe stereotyping, but I think that if you were to do look into that, it's probably the case. So you're talking older people, fixed incomes. I would be completely shocked if homeowner insurance covered off property thing, and if that was the case though, and it was. But I can tell you about homeowners policies, and I know many of you know this. A lot of times you don't want to turn stuff into that, because for one, you're going to have a deductible, which maybe even the homeowner couldn't even afford that part. And usually when you turn in a claim, you get canceled. And that's just, unfortunately, just the way that insurance companies operate. Nobody wants to turn in claims nowadays because they're afraid to get canceled and they won't be able to find insurance somewhere else. So the risk of paying a higher rate per year, to me, just seems, the lesser of two evils, better than just everybody crossing their fingers and hoping they don't foot a 7,000 or, I could see it being 10 grand the way inflation is with things. Take up a road, sidewalk, you got a planner, you got to re-pour a sidewalk, and then you got to have an inspector, this and that, and then you got to get a permit to do it. Pretty soon it's 15 grand. I mean, there's just no way I'm going to want homeowners to bear something like that. And then there's finger pointing. So I would lean more towards incorporate. This needs to be built into the rates. This needs to be a maintenance, rolled up in those fees that are collected to take care of this type of thing, because I don't feel like the public should be going out in the public, right away and doing stuff. So I would like to see what those rates are, but that would be my impression. I'm not really going to be in favor of putting this back on the homeowner. That's just me. Vice Mayor, you want to make a comment?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Selling, I have a few questions and just for the clarification. The one question not for me, and somebody asked on the citizen, the recommendation, they say read by title only and waive the first reading. Could you explain a little bit to the public what that means?
Yeah, I'll try, and if the city attorney wants to correct me or supplement, I would welcome that. So essentially, when you make an ordinance change or create a new ordinance, my understanding is it's a two-step process, and essentially the first step is you introduce the ordinance or the revision and waive the reading of it, and basically set the second date to bring the ordinance back for council consideration. So the first step, what we're doing tonight, is basically discussing what the proposed change in this case is, and then taking direction from council if they wish to proceed in changing the ordinance. Then we would set the date for returning for formal consideration.
Thank you for the clarification. My next just kind of information, I see on the report, the staff did some research and check on the other cities. And did you have the idea which city is all the responsibility on the homeowner and some city is the city responsibility? Could you might be tell me how many cities you did, surrounding area, which cities said yes or yes?
Yes, I think we heard back from, I think about 4 in our general area. And as I recall, there were 3 that said they put the responsibility on the property owner. And the one that was similar to Galt was Elk Grove under the Regional Sanitation District. They are the same as us, and they will do the work at their expense in the city right away.
All right, there is 3 cities, they said they are, responsibility to the owner. Which city was that?
Sacramento, I believe, and the other 2, I think, were Elk Grove, or I'm sorry, Rancho, and I think it was Citrus Heights, but I'd have to go back and confirm.
Okay, and did staff try to Lodi and Stockton?
I did not hear from Lodi or Stockton, no.
All right, thank you. And then my next question is, the rate increase, right? We does not have enough data at this time, maybe a $1, maybe $2, or maybe a $3 per month to increase if we are not going to put that burden on that 30% houses like in build back in maybe 40, right?
Correct.
Yeah, because their sewer system, I believe back in 1950, they were using clay pipes and galvanized.
Yeah, typically for sewer, it would be clay or Orangeburg back in that time frame, but yes, and sometimes ductile iron, so.
And then their deterioration approximate age is between 50 to 60 or more. That's what is. And all the new houses, now we're using PVC and ABS, right?
Correct.
And their life expectation very much around 80 to 100 a year.
Correct.
Right. So I'm talking about these, if we putting these burden on the houses, that can be most likely in west side of the city, right?
Yeah, the older, yes.
Yeah, and the study we did, we don't have enough data. I don't know how much will be increased or not. Just like if, for example, if the house is old and their sewer well broke, and hypothetically is owner's responsibility, what do you think if on the new recommendation, because they have to get the permit, the contract have to go not in the private property, in the public property. And when the contractor giving you a bid to working on the public property as compared to the personal property is a lot of difference. You have to get the permit, and when you're working on the public property, the contractor, especially they have to take care of the traffic, they have to much more. And what approximate, I know it can be different, the length of the lateral. What do you think approximate bill cost to that house is same time? What kind of approximate do you think?
Yeah, it is hard to say. I will tell you on the example, the deeper one over on McFarland, which was a little over 7,000. We did seek a quote from a contractor rather than have our forces do it, and the quote came back a little over 10,000. So we went ahead and did it ourselves rather than have the contractor do it. And probably saved the city in this case about $3,000. It's hard to say, on a given, it might be more expensive, it might be cheaper. It is hard to say. It's kind of a case by case, but generally, yeah, with the cost of a permit, but the thing is they're not paying prevailing wage either, like we would have to do. So, so the homeowner would save that expense, to some degree. So there'd be somewhat of an offset there.
Okay. Then my next question, when we doing, or do you have any idea for upgrading the sewer system in the old area, like in downtown area, or we don't have any plan?
So the city has a master, master plan for the sewer system, but it does not look at, the individual laterals, so.
Thank you. And my last, just a comment, I would like to make a comment to the public. I do understand as a council member, I will be my best interest to the city. But on the other hand, I have a best interest to my constituents and best interest to these people, the homeowners. And I'm reluctant to move this forward because there is 30% houses in old houses on the west side of Sacramento. If there's sewer problem, I don't know how they can afford $10,000 right way to do that. And the other thing is, I will wait for the rate study. I really need to know how much effect. If there is a couple dollar, I believing in myself, just put with everybody so we can help to these people. They don't have to pay $10,000 from their pocket. That's my last. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Councilman Vandenberg.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to mention real quickly that if there's 8,000 homes in the city of Galt at $1 a month for 12 months, that's $96,000. So that's, we discussed earlier, $40,000 or $50,000 if things were to be consistent. Not that they will, but that would easily cover that. And that's all I have.
I agree with Councilman Vandenberg. I just doing some simple math. I'm thinking, 8,000 homes. If you guys are, let's say if the city projects to have to do 10 of these repairs a year at a cost of, $7,000 to $10,000, I'll just use like an 8,000 figure just to keep the math simple. $8,000, 10 repairs, 80,000, at $2 a month, you're looking at 96,000. So I mean, I think that's a pill that the citizens could swallow. I think it's peace of mind. It's almost like insurance to maybe have $1 or $2, rate increase to cover such things. I just would rather lean towards something like that than putting the brunt back on these people, because I just do not think that your average homeowner in an older home is going to be able to bear an $8,000 to $10,000 cost. And I could see those costs going up. I just don't think it's right. I think this should be built in. I think if we're providing a service to the public and we're providing an infrastructure, that these things should be, to be honest with you, I'm surprised they weren't kind of factored in already. I think this is maybe, just the can's been kicked down the road or something, which wouldn't be anything new, but, in government, but I think we need to have this built in, because I'm not going to put this cost on people in a huge lump sum like that. I'd rather see it on the rates, but I would like to see a rate study. And so along with what Vice Mayor said, I'm not prepared to move this along tonight either. What I would like to see is some sort of approximate rate. I would like to see an approximate projection of what that cost of and what the projected repairs would be over the coming years per year. I would like to see projected costs, and I would like to see what that equals into dollars for ratepayers at the most economical. So we're just, they're paying for something that's not just inflated. That's what I would like to see. Mr. Hines, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So what I'm hearing is that it appears that council is not supportive of transferring the liability back to the homeowner, which then tells me that we need to include this as a component in the rate study. And if we do that, then what we can do is withdraw this ordinance. Mr. Selling and his team will go forth with the consultant to develop the next rates, the next group of rates for wastewater or water and sewer. And that, I believe that study has to come before council at some point. Am I correct, Director Selling?
That's correct.
Okay, so why don't we just withdraw this ordinance, and then when it's time to look at the rate study, then we will bring this back. We will bring that rate study to council. We will highlight the sewer lateral, the impact of the sewer lateral expenditures in the new rates, and we can move on from there. And Mayor, you are correct. This is essentially somebody has kicked this can down the road. And as you've seen in the past year and a half, we're not going to let it get down the road too far, and we're going to try to fix it. And so this is our attempt to try to fix this issue before our auditors find it.
Okay, I appreciate that. And you did mention that when this rate study comes back, that there'll be a piece of it kind of broken out where we can kind of see what part of it has been factored in for this particular infrastructure maintenance repairs. Right?
And that's correct. Is that correct, Mr. Selling?
Yeah, that's my understanding, yes.
Okay, great, great.
Councilman Lozano, go ahead.
Yeah, I just have a quick question. So my understanding of this, this might be for the city attorney, but my understanding is this is the first discussion. The plan was to bring this back in a few weeks to continue the discussion and make a decision on whether we were going to move forward on the ordinance, the proposed ordinance or not. Is that correct?
That's correct. That was the
Yeah,
plan.
so
yes.
by
yeah,
by California law, this requires.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I would say by California law, this requires, unless it's an urgency ordinance, it's going to require a first reading and a second reading before the council. So I've seen that before. I've seen councils elect to move it forward just to continue the conversation, even though they may not have had a serious intention to adopt the ordinance, because this would have to go to council twice as presented.
Here's my thought, and I'm kind of leaning toward where my colleagues have been mentioning potentially looking at a small increase to the monthly rate, or the bi-monthly, I guess is what we pay. But if that were to come back at a place where we could say that most people on fixed incomes couldn't necessarily afford that, I'd like to have the option to at least take a look at the policy related to who's responsible. I just don't want to paint ourselves into a corner where we're tying our hands moving forward. Let's face it. I mean, we had a workshop a few months ago on sewer rates and what we're going to do with that. And, that oftentimes with inflation and with over time, it, equates to an increase. And so we're going to hit every customer again with another increase that potentially could be higher than what they could afford bi-monthly. And so I would just like to at least just keep this option open and have it come back and then make that decision then. But with the understanding that we have a little bit more solid numbers of what it would cost per ratepayer moving forward. Does that make sense? I don't know if
yeah, that makes sense. Council member, if I may.
Sure.
So Mike, help the new city manager out. Galt's water and sewer rate adoptions process looks like what?
So if I recall the schedule from when Mr. Clarkson and Mr. Habib presented, they would be looking at June, we'd be looking at adopting a rate. So I think their plan is to come back in, I want to say it was the March, April timeframe with the draft rate analysis as a presentation to council. And then based on, whatever further direction or refinement at that point, the final rates would come back in June for consideration.
Can we ask the consultant to create a draft rate study with and without sewer lateral as an element?
Yes, I believe we can. Yeah.
Okay, so that will allow council to see the impact of shifting the fund impact of shifting the liability to the homeowner versus it being retained by the fund. And then we can bring this policy discussion back, Mr. Mayor and members of the council, at that point in time, because you'll have the numbers, and this is what I'm hearing from you all. You'll have the numbers and you'll see the concrete evidence that, okay, this is $1.50, it's $2 versus surprising someone with, an $8,000 to $9,000 bill if something goes wrong. We do know that some of the surrounding jurisdictions, we know what their sort of behaviors are in this area. And so, but from what I'm hearing from the council, the sentiment is that we don't want to create any harm, or not so much harm, but we don't want to create any financial surprises on our citizens. So it looks to me like it's a discussion about the rates, both including this as a component and not including it as a component, and being able to show council that that comparison. So, Mr. Selling, we can do that in June, you say?
Well, I believe it would probably come before council before that. I think in, with the draft study in the next probably 2 to 3 months. So.
Okay. So, Mr. Mayor and council members, I would submit to you that we table this issue for now and that we bring it back when we actually have a draft rate study in hand.
All right, sorry, I'm on mute. That's what I was going to ask. Do we need to just to table it, because I'm not going to vote in favor of reading in first reading or waive the first reading. So should we? Do we need a motion and a vote to table, or just direction?
I think the city attorney can help us out there.
You're going to need a vote to table it, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Well, first of all, we need to ask for public comment. So, Tina, do we have any public comment on this item?
No hands raised.
All right. And I apologize. I should have opened it before, but I need to open public comment on this item. If you would like to raise your hand on Zoom and speak, or you can press *9 if you're on the phone, and you can comment on this item. I will leave public comment open for just a few more moments here. At which time, when I conclude the public comment, I will be looking for, just to save some time here, we'll be looking for a motion to table this item to come back in the near future with a rate study as Mr. Hines described. Oh, hang on, I gotta close the public comment first. So, any public comment, Tina?
No hands raised.
All right, I'm closing public comment on this item. I'll now entertain a motion to table.
Moved.
Moved by Vice Mayor Sandu.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Vandenberg. May I have a vote, please?
Vice Mayor Sandu.
Aye.
Councilmember Papineau.
Aye.
Councilmember Vandenberg.
Aye.
Councilmember Lozano.
Aye.
Mayor Farmer.
Aye. Motion is approved 5-0. All right, thank you, Mr. Selling, Mr. Hines. Moving on to item M, communication. Do we have any this evening?
None this evening.
Moving on to item N, city clerk's report.
Nothing.
All right. Item O, comments by staff. Mr. Hines.
I have no particular comments tonight, Mr. Mayor. I will start with our Community Development Director, Craig Hoffman, see if he has anything for the good of the order.
So, members of the council, our housing element consultant provided some draft language to HCD. We're waiting to hear back how they favor that language, and if it looks good to them, I'll be looking to bring the housing element back to you as soon as I can. But we want to make sure that HCD signs off before we move forward, and that's it. So thank you all very much, and thank you for creating that planning technician 1 and 2 position. It's a big deal.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Let's go with Police Chief Brian Kalinowski.
Good evening. I actually have nothing tonight. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Chief. Let's go with Economic Development Manager Amy Mendez.
Good evening again. Just wanted to let the group know that the International Council of Shopping Centers has an annual show in Monterey for retail recruitment, and it's been canceled the last 2 years, but this year it's back on again. So I'll be in Monterey in the month of March for retail recruitment. So be able to reach out again and start talking to some retailers on hopefully some of the vacant spaces we have in Galt, and then the Cimarron site is one of the big focuses. So stay tuned. I'll give a report back once I return with some of the retailers I was able to meet with and give some feedback on what I'm hearing that's happening in the market. And that's all I have for this evening.
Very good. Think In-N-Out Burger and Chick-fil-A.
I know, I got it on my list, don't worry.
All right. All right. Thank you so much. Let's go with our Parks and Recreation Director, Armando Solis.
Good evening again. Just want to remind everybody that we're accepting applications or registrations for T-ball and adult softball. And that this Saturday we'll be holding our Winter Bird Festival. It will be virtual. So hopefully you guys can click on and attend. And that's it. Have a great day.
All righty. Thank you. Thank you. Let's go back to Public Works Director, Mike Selling.
Yeah, thank you, Lorenzo. Just a quick heads up that there's going to be some construction starting next week down in the 4th Street area, essentially between B and C, but a little bit between C and D, right at 4th and C. We're addressing some concrete sidewalk issues there. We'll be making some safety and aesthetic enhancements to that area. So maybe some inconveniences to some of the businesses. Pardon our dust kind of thing for the next few weeks. I think the construction should be done by the end of February. I know we've done some outreach to the businesses and they're been very gracious in working with us in the city and dealing with the inconveniences to come over the next few weeks. But I think we'll probably put some information out on social media too, just to kind of help get the word out that customers can know and just understand that there'll be a little bit of inconvenience getting in and out of some of those businesses. But everybody's open as usual kind of thing. So looking forward to getting that done, and I think it'll be a nice improvement to the community there.
All righty. Thank you, Director Selling. Our City Clerk, Tina Hubert.
Nothing this evening.
All righty. And last but certainly not least, our City Attorney, Frank Splendorio.
Yeah, good evening again. Nothing further from me. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Mayor, I believe that concludes staff comments.
All right, thank you, sir. Moving on to item P, comments by city staff members or future agenda items. We'll start with Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I'd like to thank you all the staff giving us reports and hard working out there. And I also like to thank you for public comments. I'd like to thank you, Harry Wenzel, especially. He gives some information regarding COVID and he asking about the financial report. And I believe our city manager gave him a very good answer. We can get that report very soon. And I also like to thank you, Teresa McCord. She bringing that regarding vaping. And that's all tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilor Papanow.
Once again, thanks to staff for all your hard work and advice. And hats off to the police department and to the city manager for reaching out to Elk Grove City and Elk Grove Police Department in the wake of Officer Lenahan's death. I attended the funeral today along with a very large contingent from the police department here, and was proud to see that for an agency this size. You know, I understand that Officer Lenahan worked here for a while, but for an agency this size to have that big of a group showing respect was great. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Vandenberg.
Thank you, Mayor. I echo the sentiments of my Councilman Pompano. Thank you to everybody for the staff reports and my fellow council members for having a respectful debate, even if we disagree. It's good to hear the differing opinions to help form good decisions. Thank you, everybody. That's all.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Lozano.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention real quick. I forgot to mention in my report about SACOG, but there was, and this is more for Mr. Hoffman, but One of the actions the board took the other day was to repurpose some REAP funds that helped with the housing element because of the issues. There were, I think they said 9 jurisdictions within SACOG that were having issues with HCD and getting their housing element through. So there was outreach done by SACOG staff to all the jurisdictions to encourage them to apply for additional funds, and the SACOG board readjusted those funds out of other funds to help cover that. So appreciate all the work that Mr. Hoffman and his staff have done on this, and hopefully we'll get this passed through HCD and we'll be all good. I too attended the funeral for Ty Lanahan today. It was very moving. I think what Councilmember Papineau said about our contingent wasn't just officers. We had volunteers from the police department, city staff, just very, very good. And it was good to see. I did have a couple of comments from folks from Elk Grove who I've worked with over the years, and they appreciated our being there. So the other thing I just want to mention is the Stockton fire captain that was murdered yesterday while performing his function, his duties there in the city of Stockton. Very sad. The one thing I did want to say about it was we did have some of our Galt firefighters go down and help cover their station houses yesterday evening, the ones that were off duty. And so they went down and assisted with them while they began the grieving process of their fire captain. And then lastly, just the public comment, Mr. Wenzel and Ms. McCord, appreciate you chiming in and being the voice of the community. We don't get a ton of public comment, but when we do, it's important, and I appreciate that. So thank you very much. That's all I have, and we will see y'all in 2 weeks.
All right, thank you, Councilor Lozano. Yeah, just echoing again to thank the staff. The reports were good. I thank you, Jackie and Armando, for doing the extra work on that. That community outreach on the market thing. Thank you, Mr. Sling, for your report, Ms. Van Stein. And I want to, again, I want to thank staff. Some of you I actually communicate with quite frequently. Text a question. Hey, what about this? What about that? Just inquiring, and a lot. You guys are all really quick to get back to me, and I appreciate that. Phone calls, text, whatever, however it is that the communication happens, but I appreciate it. You guys know who you are, and I appreciate you being so very prompt. Mentioning, I wanted to say, because Rich brought it up about the firemen in Stockton. So my daughter, who her boyfriend, which they live together, he's a paramedic, has been for a while, and he actually was on a call earlier in the day where that fireman was there, and they were there together on a call. And then when he went to later that evening, when he discovered what had happened, it hit him pretty hard. So that was kind of something that hit kind of close to home when our family, he was pretty upset about it. So you don't think about, first responders like firemen being in danger in that way. You think about, maybe killed in a fire or something. You don't think about them being killed by gunfire like a police officer. So it's just crazy and shocking. So, our thoughts are with his family, and of course, Officer Lenahan's family. I was not able to attend today. Actually, I did not know the service was today until it was too late to make plans. So I'm glad that some of us attended. Thank you for my fellow council members who did go on our behalf. Thank you, and Mr. Hines as well. I met Ty briefly one time, and so it's a sad thing for our department to have so many of our officers, have worked with him, and I know it hit our department hard. So I would like to leave one last thing about the public comment. Mr. Wenzel, Ms. McCord, thank you for the public comment. We always welcome it. And regarding that public comment, I want to leave one last thought that I got from League of Cities that kind of stuck with me. I didn't mention earlier. One of our commentators said, as elected officials doing what's most of the time a selfless job, the best we can hope for, or the only congratulations we can, or the only thankfulness we can expect from the public is empty seats. And I know that sounds funny, but it's very true. Empty seats and no public comment is typically means that we're doing, you know, we're hopefully doing a good job and people aren't really mad about stuff. So I guess we should be happy that we don't get a lot of comment, although I'd like to hear more, but I guess that's just the nature of what we do. So I just want to leave you guys with that. Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening. And I'm going to adjourn the meeting at 8:54 p.m. Good night, everyone.